just be right about everything and be very individual about things. Don't talk to others. And I never I was a good student, but I never thrived in that environment. So I guess when I started actually looking at what learning is, I fell in love with this, and I've been doing this in one way or another for the last 12 years, higher ed, then startups, then the corporate world. And now I'm running something that's called Offbeat, is a learning space for learning and development professionals, so that we can connect just like we're doing here and learn from each other and support each other. And it's not just about the technical knowledge that we share, but sometimes what I'm seeing is that together we gain courage to do things, to experiment, to push a bit the limits that we might have had in the past. So I'm a big community fan as well. And what I do all day is that I talk to learning and development professionals, and I try to figure out how we can support them and how we can learn together and how we can push their organizations as well in learning more, in adapting for whatever the future might bring us. And I'm very, very happy to be here and thankful to Fernanda and Carolina for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you. And so to start talking about a little bit learning development, I'm going to put you in a breakout, and you're going to have 6 minutes to talk about what is your experience with learning and development and what do you hope to get and to give to this group. Okay, 6 minutes for this conversation, and there is just one pair, and try it. Have fun. People are coming back in 2 seconds. And then you run the show, Lavinia.
Yes. Well, I will need your help here and there, but welcome back, everyone. I'm curious, like, what you discussed. I'm actually really curious what's your experience with L&D. I don't know anyone here, so if you can tell me a bit about, like, do you work in L&D? Do you have any connections with the L&D world? So feel free to go off mute and share your thoughts, or write in the chat as well. Let's see.
Morning, I'll start. Well, good afternoon. My name is Charakana, and I'm new to facilitation. I don't really have too much L&D background. So I work at Rutgers University, which is a state college in Jersey. And we kind of launched a mediation or conflict resolution program. So we're sort of like an ombuds. And my coworker is a much more seasoned facilitator than I am. I have more of a mediation background. So she mentioned this company. She gave me a couple of links, and so I registered. So I've come out of curiosity and to hopefully learn more, and to whatever extent I can share my insights, if any. So
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I hope I hope you're going to take away some things from myself, but not just from myself, because I think there's so much experience in the room. Linda is saying that she's only seen L&D from afar and wondered if they had power in most organization, or more like health promotion without much power. Linda, can you go off mute and explain a bit what you meant? Maybe I can answer your question. Let's see.
Yeah, I worked trying to get workplaces healthier in public health, and we work with HR, and they didn't have much power. And so they weren't very successful in making organizations healthy, because guess what? They didn't have much power. They weren't hired to be leaders. They were hired to follow directions. So I'm curious.
Yeah. I can confirm, we can already start a bit the conversation. I can confirm that that's the reality of most L&D professionals out there. I think many of us have been hired to deliver training. So it's not at all about learning. Sometimes it's just, we have some trainings, you need to deliver those either in person, online, or design some e-learnings. So yeah, people can go through them or not, if you ask me. So there's definitely a lot that has to do with systems design and organizational development that's not taken into consideration when talking about L&D. And I think that's one of the main reasons why L&D ends up failing in most organizations. Yeah, we started on such a negative note, but it is the reality. So thank you, Linda, for your question. Aubrey says that she's an instructional designer in the L&D talent development department of a nonprofit. I've been in L&D industry for a little over a decade. I've developed a ton of in-person and e-learning resources, and love when I get to pivot the latter away from PowerPoint and that runs itself into something more interactive and fun. Aubrey, just out of curiosity, like, did what I just say resonate? Like, or do you have a different experience?
Oh, the what we were saying to Linda a second ago about like the experience of like having like that buy-in. Yeah, I've struggled with that as well. It can be difficult to get buy-in from people because their manager has to do it. And one thing that we've had to battle back a little bit with is I always kind of nicknamed it treating L&D like the McDonald's counter, because people from other departments, they come up to you and they're like, we want this. And you have to then make a point to, you got to say no. And you got to come up with very smart and wonderful and kind ways to say, no, I have a better idea because I got hired to have those better ideas. And it's tough. It's tough. And it takes time and strategy to get that buy-in.
Yep. And a lot of patience, I guess, with your stakeholders, because I think there's a lot of traditional background. When they think about learning, they think about, you know, just sitting on your chair and listening to someone. So most likely that's why they're asking for so much training or so much e-learning. So you need to have patience to like educate, I guess, stakeholders in a way.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Or yeah, and like when we've had to do it, yeah, because we'll do lots of compromises. We'll say like, okay, we'll do it your way for 3/4 of it, but let us trial run this, and then you start to get that buy-in. But yeah, it can be baby steps. And yeah, there is very often that idea of, if I don't have everybody sitting in a classroom, if I don't have everybody all sitting in the same direction, looking at slides while somebody talks in the front of the room, that it doesn't count, because that's the only learning that they've known. So that you have to kind of have to educate other people to be L&D people or instructional design people a little bit, because otherwise they don't get why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah. It's totally my experience as well. I actually added a resource here in the chat. Many of you who have worked in L&D maybe know Kathy Moore. Her framework, action mapping. What the framework says that, hey, let's not talk about the solution, let's talk about the problem, because if we don't identify the problem first, we might come up with the wrong solution. And she has this whole chain of questions that you can ask stakeholders, so that you end up turning the conversation away from training and into what is the problem that we're trying to solve, which is usually a performance problem or a behavioral problem. So I totally recommend her framework. Okay, let's move on to what other people have been saying. Sanika says, I have been in L&D for 9 years. I come from an instructional designer background, have some facilitation experience, and offer some learning consultancy, needs analysis and evaluation. Maybe Sanika, if you haven't heard of action mapping before, that this is super helpful. Dan says that I work in the space of social impact, but see collective learning and co-creation as a vital dimension of that work. Hell yeah. And I will talk a bit about that in my I have a very, like, it's not a presentation. I just want to point out some things, and I like the visual, for you to have the visual part as well. Okay, and then Padmavati says that I've been in L&D for the past 6 years, and I see there's so much that can be done and that can create real change. And what I've struggled with is the processes, and I found a lot of help through LinkedIn. And then the past year, I would say all these wonderful L&D professionals have actually helped me change my approach. A huge call out to LinkedIn here. So I think I don't know if we are allowed to swear here, but I just want to say that there's a lot of shit on LinkedIn, and there's a lot of like, everybody, we're doing so great, and all the people saying the good parts of life, which we usually do on social media. But I also think there is a corner of LinkedIn that's so much about learning, and I'm lucky enough to be in some of those corners. And yeah, I'm glad to see others being there as well. And Camila says that having worked in L&D within the hospitality industry, I relate to the challenge of having limited influence, where training often serves as a box ticking exercise for audits, compliance, rather than being a meaningful opportunity for transformation. It's often the role where many leaders tend to offload responsibility for their teams, expecting L&D to fix performance issues without addressing the root causes themselves. 100%. And I want to, before I start sharing a few of the thoughts that I had, I want to acknowledge something. One thing that I've seen L&Ds do a lot, like in the past decades, is that we chase the new shiny thing. So whatever is like micro learning was shiny a couple of years back. Everyone should do micro learning. Then VR, at some point, VR was a big thing. I don't know where it went, but it was a big thing. Let's do VR. So we do tend to chase the new shining solution. But it's very hard for us to stay in the problem space, because it's not required of us sometimes. And I will tell you some trends that I've been noticing over the past year, let's say, but I want to make sure that we discuss these together. So I will just share something very quickly, and then we come back. I would love to hear your thoughts and questions as well. Share, let's see if technology works for me. Okay, again, there are a couple of things that we're not discussing today, because I honestly don't think they're as relevant as others. Micro learning, accessibility is actually super relevant, but it should be discussed more, so scratch the relevancy. I don't know why I put it here. Small note. Let's see other things like user-generated content and curation. Like, these are the trends that we're not going to discuss today. Maybe one of the reasons that we're not going to discuss today about accessibility is that I am not educated enough to talk about this. So I will let others that are smarter than me cover that topic. But the things that I want to tell you a bit about today, and please don't run away when you hear this, but I do think that AI is important, and I want to explain why I think AI is important. So when it comes to L&D, we've been focusing a lot on individuals, and one of the dreams that we've had always is personalizing the learning experience, right? So that the learning is more relevant, more timely, more contextual, and so on and so forth. And so far, we couldn't find the technology to help us do that. With all the negatives that AI comes with, personalization isn't one of them. It's actually making personalization a dream finally come true for us in L&D. And I do think it's important to discuss about that. And there's another reason why I think it's important to discuss AI, and it's because it might finally take over some of the tedious tasks that we've had in L&D, that can be easily automated so that we can focus on things that are way more important. And I think Dan mentioned co-creation and just building things with people and not for them. So having the time to do that. I would also mention organizational design, so that whatever people learn, they can actually have the space and the conditions to apply and experiment with. I would mention also a bit of putting some emotion into the learning experience design, not just content, because there's a lot of focus on that. So I think it's still super important to discuss AI, although it's overblown, if you ask me, these days. Then I mentioned that we focus a lot on L&D on content. And if you think about it, the reason why we had training in the first place was because access to information was not what it is today. And we had to find a way to structurally send information to people so that they can improve their performance. So that's why training appeared in the first place decades ago. But now, if AI will like send over information to people whenever they need it and so on, why are we still gathering them in a room like this one or live? And my answer is actually found in experience design, because I think human connection is extremely important. And I think, again, emotion is also extremely important. So I think we will be looking at redesigning the way we bring people together, connection over content, and emotion maybe over ration, to help them transform their mindsets, change their behaviors, and so on. And again, I'm a huge fan of experience design. I totally recommend you look into it. Then co-creation. That's why I was so glad to see it in the chat. Co-creation, because over the past couple of years, we've been designing learning for people and not with them. And then we wonder, why aren't they engaged in the learning process? And there's a bias here, the IKEA effect, where basically if you build something yourself, you're going to be more engaged with whatever that is, and you're going to be more willing to promote whatever that is as well. So I think co-creation is so important, and we should do it more often. Then rituals. I'm a huge fan of rituals, and I just discovered it. This idea that you need structure, but in the way that brings people together. You need connection. You need also cadence. You need for people to know what to expect from a learning space. So creating these rituals in organizations where people come together to reflect, to share, either synchronously or asynchronously, I think holds a lot of power, and also bringing people together with purpose, not just for them to hear some content that they can, again, learn from AI. And finally, experimentation. Like the way that L&D designed so far was that we, or at least from my experience, is that we got a training request, then we went to our dark room and started designing that training or e-learning or whatever that was, and then put it out in the world and hoped that, one, it's still relevant, and two, someone will engage with it. I think we're moving from that very water flow way of doing things into a more experimental mindset, where it's not just about reaching a goal, but it's also about learning something new with whatever we put out there. So we act more like scientists and scientists define success as learning something new about whatever they're researching. And I'm seeing more and more L&Ds leaning into experimentation, first of all, to ship things quicker, and second of all, to actually learn in the process of shipping in order to improve whatever they're designing. And for the experimentation part, I have two recommendations. The first one is Amy Edmondson's newest book, Right Kind of Wrong. And she talks a lot about the difference between complex failure, simple failure, and mistakes. And she explains why society taught us that failure equals mistake, which is not the case. And failure is good as long as we learn from it. So that's one book that I totally recommend. And the other one is newer, and it's called the experiment mindset or something like that. I'll make sure to send over the link to you. And it gives basically tools so that you can embrace experimentation, not just as a design mindset, but also as a learning mindset for yourself. Trying things out quickly to see, do I like this? Should I do something else? Am I passionate about whatever topic I'm exploring? So experimentation, I think, will be a bigger and bigger trend over the years. So I will leave you with this, and I will stop my share screen now, and I will ask Carolina if you can help me with creating breakout rooms, because I want this to be like a conversation space, and I want you to think of questions that you might have for me or for the room as well about the things that I just shared. And we will come back and have some space for you to ask those questions, but also to share whatever thoughts you have about these 5 trends that I just shared. Karina, can you help me with the breakouts?
Yes, I'm just gonna open the rooms here, have a good conversation, and craft some questions for her.
Drill me.
Yeah. Hello, Cecilia.
Welcome back, everyone. Hope you had some good conversations in the breakout rooms. Now, what I wanted to say first, I hope you have questions for myself and for everyone else, but I just want to acknowledge that I might not have all the answers for the questions that you have. And if anyone else has input, please do write in the chat at all times. And for us to be like a bit structured, if you can like raise your hand, if you like your virtual hand, not your physical hand. I don't want you to exhaust yourself. If you can raise your virtual hand if you have a question, and I will make sure to get to like everyone who has a question. But if you cannot go off mute, feel free to just write the question in the chat, and I will get there as well. So let's see, what questions did you come up in your breakout rooms? If you don't have any questions, that's also fine. Don't get me wrong. Linda, go ahead.
I want to just totally gush over how much I like you, but instead I will say, is the sort of thing that you were talking about, in health promotion, we could use AI to make 20 versions of a newsletter based on people's interest. You know what I'm saying? I don't see anybody doing that because I think not everybody is hardwired like me, who I would enjoy having a list to choose from. And you could embed it if you had tech skills. But is that the sort of thing you're talking about? Like they're not even touching AI in health promotion as far as I could tell when I left. But that immediately occurs to me as like, you could have people choose, okay, I'm younger and I don't care about my health. How is this relevant to me? Or I'm scared about my health. How does this apply? So is that the sort of thing you're talking about? That's just what I wanted to ask.
Yes. That's one way of looking at things. And I can tell you about some tech that's being developed. I don't think just by one company, by multiple companies. These AI tutors where basically the AI interacts with all the data that it has available about you from the organizational side. Of course, there are multiple questions about data privacy, ethics, and so on. But the good part of it, I guess, is that it can personalize your learning experience. So instead of sending you an e-learning, for example, it can start by asking you questions and then send you like different type of content. It can be audio, it can be videos, it can be text, depending on what it knows about you. And of course, the AI also learns from the interactions that you have, so that it can improve what it let's say how it interacts with you, not necessarily what it sends you. So yes, that's the type. And your point actually about newsletters, that's such a good point. I'm not seeing any, but there might be some out there, any email marketing platforms that are actually using AI for this purpose, to personalize emails, newsletters, whatever they are. We are still seeing very, very static platforms. Okay, thank you, Linda. Dan?
Yeah, I think we had an amazing chat around AI was the big thing that came up. Like, that, what is it? How do we figure it out? Yeah, I've had it in sessions that I've had. We were figuring out an impact strategy, and the way I've seen people use it is to start prompting questions of how would the chatbot do it, approach it, acting as brands or political leaders, and saying like how would they approach it, and really sitting in that space of using it as a tool to stretch our ideas outside of our own. But I think Neha summed it up beautifully, was like, how do we position AI as a learning companion and an ethical one? Like, how do we actually use it in that marriage? So I guess my question, I'd just be curious on, kind of, you mentioned the AI tutors, but what else you might be seeing of ideas people are trying. I think just as we start to learn and grapple with the tool and what it can do, yeah, I'd just be curious of like thoughts that you've seen or ideas you have around how you might use it.
Of course. So one thing that I wanted to mention is that I think Harvard recently did a study on how people are using AI chats, basically. And I think brainstorming, which is very similar to the use case that you mentioned, it was second or third, I think, as a use case. So it's definitely quite common for people to use it like that. Now, for us in L&D, I've seen two other use cases. The first one is a learning design. The issue that we have with these general tools such as like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and so on, is that they are general. And someone said something really smart, that for AI to be more useful, it needs to get more specific. And I recently heard of this tool. It's called Epiphany. You can search for it like Epiphany AI. And the tool, like the tool is trained on learning science. So on research reports and on all sorts of science that has been gathered in the research community over the years, so that when we design learning, we make sure that we design it with science in mind. And one of its co-founders, and I totally recommend you follow her, she's Dr. Philippa Hardman. She's a researcher, she's a teacher in the UK, and she researched a lot of like technology and then learning as well. So she's in this very good intersection, and over the past couple of years she's been talking a lot about AI, both with the good parts and the bad parts. And I think it was the same Harvard study that actually mentioned that overuse of AI led companies to losing customers, because customers are starting to figure out where AI is being used, and they don't like it as much, especially again if it's overused. If you see like those LinkedIn posts that they're clearly written with AI, I think we are getting better at discerning between these two. Well, human-led and AI-led. Have I answered? Oh, and I had another use case. Sorry, I said I have 2 use cases. The other use case is regarding skills. So one of the things that L&Ds have been struggling with is defining what are the skills that or competencies that an organization needs in order to progress, and then assessing how much of those skills they have in their companies in order to make sure that they design learning experiences to grow those skills. And I'm seeing some companies like Sana or something, I will remember and paste it here, that are doing basically competency analysis with human input. I think that's very, very important, with human input, so that you basically get a dashboard of, okay, these are the competencies that matter. This is where we are as an organization. This is where we should be focusing more or less. Have I answered your question?
Yeah, really great. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay. Is it Cherkina? Cherkana.
Yes.
Okay.
Hi. Okay. So my question was, I thought your point about rituals was really interesting. And I really was just curious if you could just kind of share more about it and maybe some examples on it, because I thought that was a really great point.
Yes. I actually have 2 examples, if you allow me just 1 second. Technology, not my friend, apparently. Okay. So, again, people that are way more into this and have been researching this way more than I did came up with this framework for what a good ritual looks like. And they said that you need to provide purpose, repeatability, predictability, flexibility, and community. And we have a community, as I was mentioning, and we tried this out in 2 ways. We started these mastermind sessions. We run them every 2 months. The participation is, of course, voluntary, and we use the co-development framework. This framework, if you haven't heard of it, is either called co-development or intervision, depending on what part of the world you're in. And its assumption is that by default, there's a lot of knowledge in the room, in whatever room you go in. And that some people might have some challenges that other people could help with. So in the framework, you have 3 roles, actually. You have the client or the coachee, you have the consultants or coaches, and you have the facilitators. So we bring our L&Ds together. We ask them what one of them, like, what issue do you have? And then everyone else gets to jump in, either with solutions, with questions, or resources that person can use. And we try to, again, provide all of those things, predictability, because we run it like every 2 months, flexibility, because they can join or not, or even if they join, they can join as a client or they can join as a consultant. And we also prepare, like, every time we run the session, people know what to expect. In the last week of the month, we announce the date, we invite people to join as client, then we announce the issue, we invite people to join as consultants, and so on. So, and we end it with a kudos from the client to the consultants, so that we can also celebrate this coming together. And of course, it is about community. It's people coming together, and the purpose is to help people solve their problems through this shared knowledge. So this is one way of doing things that's more synchronous. Another thing that we've been doing, our community lives in a Slack channel, like most communities nowadays. And every Wednesday, we ask people a question, and they need to reply with whatever thoughts they have. Sometimes the question is very technical, like how are you supporting your organization in adopting AI? And other times it's more personal, like what is one emotion that you associate with learning. And it's just about, again, bringing people together so we can hear different things. And we actually had some really nice feedback even about this, like asynchronous Slack question of the week thing, where people went back to their organization and did the same, or they saw things like a nudge to act on something, and so on. And I will share, I have so many resources to share with you after this. I will share it with Carolina, and if Carolina can send over, there's an ebook that these really smart people working on rituals have put together.
Yeah, we
Okay,
can do that.
perfect. Okay, Padmavati?
Hi, Lavinia. Hi, everyone. So, my question is about around the experience design that you mentioned, and that the part where we need to include the emotion and human connection. I completely agree with that, and I've been trying to do that, and I've just been struggling with that a lot. One of the reasons is that in my organization, as of now, because L&D is only 2 years old, so we are just focused on e-learning because we have employees from all over the world, and e-learning is such a good way to make sure everyone gets their trainings right. Now the only struggle is that I know we can improve the interactivity through different tools that are available in the market, but a lot of times these are very expensive and the budget allocation is not done. So, how do we tackle this with the existing tools? How can we use the existing tools to add that emotional and human connection? What I've been doing so far is, using scenario-based questions,
Mm-hmm.
so or branching scenarios. But I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it could be still done more, but I'm not sure what it is that we could do.
You know, I have so many thoughts. I'm super passionate about experience design, so bear with me. One of them is that I remember when I started out in learning, after I came out of my training phase where I thought like training is the only thing that we could do. I started thinking about learning journeys, and I heard of this idea of learning experience design. And in my mind, learning experience design was, okay, you put a couple of sessions together, and in between sessions, you maybe ask some questions for people to reflect and so on. So that was my notion at that time of learning experience design. What changed my mindset or my mental model about experience design entirely.
She was frozen for me, for you too. Yeah, she'll be back probably. Something happened.
Something
Yeah.
happened. I don't know what exactly, but something definitely happened. Where did you lose me? I will start from what changed my mental model about experience design was understanding that experience design it's actually a discipline in itself. So it's something that people have written books about, have studied, and yeah, they try to explain how it can shape not just learning or not learning at all, but actually economies and so on, right? So that's the first thing that I want to say. Then I think one of the things that L&Ds do is that they always start with what information do we want to share? What if instead of asking that, you would ask, what is the emotion that we would like learners to have when entering this e-learning, when being in the middle of this e-learning, when ending this e-learning. And I shared with you this link of the 5 E's of experience design because it also shows like a really nice journey of how an experience can be structured. It was built by Chaos Pilot. They're very well known in the experience design world. So again, what if instead you would ask this question first before thinking first, what is the information that we want people to have? And to give you an example, it wasn't an e-learning, it was a program where people actually like met and so on. But we wanted people to be left with, at the end of the program, to feel empowered. And we thought, like, what is the best way for these people to be empowered? If we tell them, hey, you're gonna do a great job, we didn't knew them like that personally. It wouldn't mean as much to them. So what we did was that we asked all of them to send us the emails of someone they really, really cared about and someone that was very close to them. And they send us the emails of their manager, the emails of their colleague, the emails of their partner even. And we gave those people the task to send us a very short video sharing with us why our participants were great learners. And at the end of the program, we just had a moment where we shared those videos with people, and they had to listen through the words of the people that they had a connection with, why those people thought they're really good learners. First of all, it was a surprise, like nobody expected that. And second of all, it was just such a touchy feeling at the end. Everybody was like, hell yeah, I can do this. Like I never thought of myself as that, you know? So again, the one question that I would urge all learning designers to ask is, what is the emotion that you want people to feel? Because, and I want to stress this, emotion is there, whether we design for it or not. But if we don't design intentionally for it, I think there's a higher chance for that emotion to be boredom, to be, I don't know, what other emotions might be out there, you know? But if we design intentionally for some emotions, and I think there's a place for positive emotions and there is a place for less positive emotions, like, you know, feeling a bit frustrated, maybe feeling a bit uncertain about things. I think you can also rely on those emotions. Someone said, a neuroscientist actually told me that the best way to make people remember something is to traumatize them. And I don't want you to traumatize people, but you know, to understand how powerful the emotion could be in order for people to remember whatever experiences you're putting them through. And I hope I answered your question.
Yes, yes, thank you very much. Yeah.
I want to throw this at you 1 second to see what Aubrey is saying. As someone who's done a little game design, those are great for traumatizing people harmlessly. Yes, well, you have great experience. Aubrey, can you share a bit more about your thoughts?
Yeah, I can share a little bit there. So I'm trying to think of some of the games that we have done, but getting people involved, like we tend to do, like a lot of times when we've done games in the past, like the original sort of assumption was, okay, we give people some slides and then we do like a Kahoot or another kind of quiz thing. And those aren't bad per se. Like there's certainly, not a waste of time. But the times where we have put people in, we will arrange things in like a competition with teams or otherwise create a game where there's a losing situation. Like it is harmless to lose ultimately. Like very often there is no prize or anything like that. But just creating the situation where where knowing versus not knowing information is going to affect the outcome, affects people, because first off, that really triggers that active recall, that really triggers them to like really work at like remembering things instead of immediately diving for the reference if we don't want them to dive for the reference. And the other thing is, if they lose the game because they didn't remember things, first off, nothing bad actually happened. Secondly, like you said, they've had that exact experience of there was an emotional connection. I didn't know something. I experienced a very mild negative emotion about it. And then when I do get told the answer to that, it sticks more. So usually, you know, as a course of a game, if it's a game show or something like that, you're finding out pretty quick. So that's something that can be really effective. And you can do that electronically, or you can do that, like I think Padmavi's question was like about like how can we do like stuff like that without like any of the tech tools. It's like you can do you can do Jeopardy, break people up into teams. You can do it over Zoom with a whiteboard or a chalkboard, and have them practice recall that way, and that can be gamification without going and buying a single extra gadget than you already have. So there's stuff like that on the table.
Thank
you so
Albert.
much.
Thank you so much. And I want to come back to Christina's question. If user experience design, let me go to it. Experience design is the same as user experience. I would say that experience design is at the basis of user experience, but it's so much more. And I can give you a clear context about this. So there's this book that I recommend. It's called The Experience Economy, that explains how economy has evolved over time. We started with commodities, right? We started with coffee beans. Those were the things that you had to buy, and then you had to make your you know, how do you say? I don't drink coffee, so I don't know. You turn them from coffee beans to something that turns into coffee later on. I don't know what that's called, but you understand the process, right? Then coffee beans were widely available. The next thing that came out were goods. And now you had coffee in a package, right? So you just bought that coffee and then you put it in your thing that makes coffee. I'm so sorry. This was such a bad example, but I hope you're following me if you drink coffee. Then the next thing is that you went to a shop to buy coffee. So you didn't have to make that at home, right? That was a service. And then the next thing was Starbucks, that was writing your name on the cup, and that was building a coffee space where you didn't just go there to buy a coffee, but you went there to work, to spend time with friends, and so on and so forth. So we slowly transitioned into providing more value to the user, of course, for more money as well, but more value than just those commodities. And there are like other companies doing that. Disney is doing that amazingly with their theme parks. Like just going there, it's an entire experience. Like seeing Mickey Mouse, even for myself as an adult, those things leave an impression on me. Any theme park out there, Ferrari World in Dubai. So all of these in Abu Dhabi, sorry. So all of these experiences provide something more than just the commodity, good, or service. It speaks to you. User experience, I think it's just the use, a certain use of experience design into technology, like apps and platforms and websites and so on. But it is much more than that. And again, I hope I answered your question. Good. I know we don't have much time left, and I see some comments in here. Mark says, I'm a big fan of the pedagogical theory and practice of the Kripalu Center Investor, the I won't be able to pronounce this as a non-English speaking person, or non-native English person. The center's approach is to distinguish the differences between traditional lecture, experiential, and life-transforming learning settings. Mark, can you tell us a bit more about that? That sounds right on point.
So if we look back at our learning experiences as adults, let's say from university to the present day, and think about the learning experiences that have stuck with us and changed our lives and are foundational to who we are. In my experience, a deeply experiential listening skills workshop 30 years ago that I use still every day. Experiential workshops are a great improvement over dumping information lecture style on people, but we can forget the content of experiential learning if we don't keep practicing them. We'll lose it in a year or two, okay? But life transforming, as I said, is the kind of space where people feel vulnerable, draw from their life experience, and there's enough space, enough meditative space, like how we began this workshop today with meditation and centering, that we're actually profoundly changed by that. So that's kind of the thesis of that institute in Western Massachusetts. And your Romanian is and your English is far better than my Romanian.
Thank you so much, Mark. I wanted to say that one of the things that, so I did this experience design program with Chaos Pilot, and one of the things that the facilitator there kept on mentioning, and he tried building this space, was psychological safety. I think for a group to be vulnerable, to get to that personal touch, you do need a lot of psychological safety. You do need assumptions like, maybe my question is not right, or maybe my experience is not relevant, to be kind of left at the door when you enter a space, so that you're there with your whole person. It doesn't matter if your question is not relevant for someone else, it's relevant for you. So I always try to say this to like all the sessions that we facilitate in the community. Just ask it. If it's relevant for you, you should be asking it. So yeah, thank you, Mark. I will be looking into it as well. Any other thoughts or questions just as we close, because we need a bit of time for proper closing? Yes, I see. Yes.
So yeah, I was in the small group with Mark, and we started talking about like ways to get people to remember practices and things like that. And I recently did Search Inside Yourself program, and through my job. And one of the things though that they implemented that I thought was helpful were accountability partners. And so we had small groups break out throughout the session, and then they said, okay, the person you had a breakout room with or breakout session with for this last activity, that's going to be your accountability partner. So buddy up with them and schedule a time that works for you both to check in, for at least the next month. And I feel like it has allowed me to think more about the practices that we learned. Am I perfectly implementing them? No, but it's on my mind, and way more than it would have been. It would have been very easy to just walk away and not think about it again. So I think that is something that really sticks as a great tool to help people remember practices in their day-to-day life.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I can build on what you just said. In the 5E experience design framework, the last stage is called exit. And in the exit phase, what they say is that you need people to take something away with them for when they leave the space, the learning space. And they usually recommend something physical. And we, just to give you an example, we're organizing a conference, and we will take pictures, like these types of pictures of people, and we will have them take those away at home with them. But you can also leave them with people, just like you said, these accountability partners. And after our program, our experience design program, we worked in groups in the program itself, and those groups became like our accountability groups to actually practice experience design later on. And I think, you know, there are various experiences with this. Some groups don't work, others work. But I do think it's worth trying out for sure. Thank you so much. Carolina, I will hand it over to you.
Yeah, and I think it's important to exit in a proper way. So maybe we would like to know your takeaways. So what was valuable for this session today? And so I'm gonna just put in the chat what we used to put. So maybe you can not write right away, but think about a little bit, maybe 1 minute of self-reflection. So what was valuable to you today for this gathering? And then after this 1 minute, we're gonna write in the chat. It's nice to breathe and to take it in and see how much we covered and what is in you now. So if you can share in the chat for us what was valuable for you today. Yeah, something that came here. So designing for emotion. Start, middle, and end. It's interesting. And yeah, to share the experience, the discussion was good. Center role of emotions in the learning and growth. Inspiring conversations. Yeah, to bring the Bahraini instructors into schools. It's here we are together. Yeah. Rituals, community building, so making it an experience. All threads that Lavinia mentioned, really helpful to get me thinking more deeply. Yeah, I think ritual again. Yeah, nice. Great opportunity to have you all here. And we still have 7 minutes, so I just want to open the room for anyone who wants to express yourself verbally and to say what are your takeaways or what you are going to do after this. Oh, generosity and joy of Lavinia. Indeed.
I actually had a question for someone. Linda, actually, I had a question for you. I read your takeaway and it stuck with me that this idea of designing for emotion didn't convince you in the past, and I was curious as to why.
It was peripheral to they instruct you said they said the beginning you're going to think about that, and then they never referred to it again. And I was like, well, if they're not going to talk about it versus they talked about what, gut, so what, now what, that there are different kinds of learning and you have to appeal to all four. They kept going over, but they did not come back to that. As part of the planning project, you're going to second feel it. It was on the sheet, and I was just like, it can't be important. They're not bringing it up.
Got it. Thank
Yeah,
you.
so it's honestly really important, right? Because we're humans and we want to be connected to that. Some people don't just, that's what I took away. Some people don't really care about that, but we still care about setting the opportunity for that.
Yeah, and it's neuroscience, it's how our brain operates. So, yeah, it's not just that we want to be fluffy. It's not that, because I do feel like I've heard this from some organizations that emotions. Why are we talking about this? No, it's not that. It's how our brain works. It's technical things, actually, So yeah. So many books. It's Karina, I think we can make a list of all the resources that have been shared in the chat. So many resources in the chat as well. Mark, Dave, so many people shared. So maybe
we send an email with the recording, and so we can put some things there. So some resources.
Awesome.
To share with everyone. Yeah.
Well, one thing that I want to put out as an action item is just obviously our speaker is really excellent, and it's easy to just go on LinkedIn and recommend her as a public speaker. So she has more influence in other places.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, then that being said, if you allow me, Karina, just a second, I would love to keep in touch with you. I talk too much about learning on LinkedIn. That's what you should know about me. So be prepared if we connect. And thank you all for joining us and for making this so easy for me.
Thank you, Lavinia. It was lovely to have you here. And as was said here, so your generosity, your joy, your light, it's so nice to have you with us and keep learning together, because together is the way to go, right? Co-creating, learning, sharing. Yeah, thank you for making the time. And everyone, so it's nice to have the questions and the comments, and yeah, so thank you for coming. And we have our next practice in 1 month, so keep tuned.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good morning, day, evening, wherever you are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.